What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at ImmacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 239, a couple weeks in to the Major League Baseball season. So we're buying and selling. There's a couple things. We're not really sure if this is sustainable. Do we want to take our stock on them now while they're hot or cold? And then a couple of basketball things we'll touch on at the end here too. Feel like we'll move college football draft stuff onto next week. We got one more week of more baseball stuff. We're just trying to figure out what in the world's going on with this season.
Yeah, it's at a weird spot that we'll get into in a little bit, but it's always fun buying and selling 2 weeks into the year because some of these takes, 3 months from now will look really bad. Some of them, maybe they look really good and we're completely onto something. So we'll get into those in a few minutes from now. But before that, we got the opener as always, and you've got a fun one with that crazy championship game last night for March Madness.
Yeah, the Florida Gators win their first championship since 2007, a 2-point win against the Houston Cougars. That's 5 comeback wins in a row for the Gators. They beat number 8 UConn, number 4 Maryland, number 3 Texas Tech, number 1 overall Auburn, and another number 1 in Houston. One of the craziest runs we've seen in a while. Thanks a lot to tournament MVP Walter Clayton Jr. He finally did have a bad game against Houston, but he got it done last night with the defense. Great overall team performance. Florida was the hottest team going into the tournament. And looking back, I was pretty dumb to not take at least one bracket. I was just thinking it was too good to be true. But at the end of the day, we got a great championship game to make up for all 1 seeds being in the Final Four.
Yeah, definitely feels like with Florida winning that we're back in our childhood because they were winning the basketball tournaments. They're winning national championships in football as well, too. Now they return to the top with their college basketball team. My favorite thing I've seen this past week, I'm going a bit more local. I'm going to Tyler Soderstrom and Jacob Wilson and their completely hot starts that they've gotten on to in the 2025 season. We'll talk maybe about both of them as we go on later in the show, but I just want to say seeing your young guys perform well, a couple of 23-year-olds, 22-year-old guys, it feels good for an A's team that has seemingly not hit on a ton of their big-time prospects in recent years. These 2 guys seem like studs. We're hopefully getting another one in Nick Paz Kurtz, who should be up sooner rather than later. He's been demolishing the baseball. Huge arrow up on a lot of big prospect boards. And, he's been a stud. So hopefully those 3 guys continue their success and we see them, accumulate some victories for the green and gold this year. Maybe become a competitive team. On to player, pitcher, rookie in the week, though. Always fun to do. Player of the week, Skyler. Who'd you choose?
Sody's definitely a guy up there on the board. Went deep a bunch of times, but I'm going to go with Ivan Herrera, St. Louis. A great week carried by his 3-homer night against the Angels, and unfortunately did get hurt right after that. But Herrera going back to catcher has been a big factor for St. Louis in their early success this year. So I hope he gets back out there pretty soon.
Yeah, good choice picking a backstop wearing a red jersey. I went with a different backstop wearing a red jersey, going Logan O'Hoppe. In his 4 games, 8 for 17, 4 homers, 16 OP or 1.6 OPS. Obviously ridiculous numbers. Saw his debut a couple of years ago with the A's. Met his mom and his sister or something like that. Walked him down in the field or something. But he's a stud. We knew that when he was a prospect with the Phillies, and we're seeing that, really turn into one of the best backstops in the league with the Angels over the past few years, whenever he's healthy, that is. What about pitcher of the week?
I'm going with Hunter Green. 2 great starts last week. It feels like he's finally making a name for himself as an elite starter, finally being able to throw a couple great games in a row. That was 7 innings, 1 run against Texas. He unfortunately gets the loss for that, but he comes right back in San Francisco, 8 2/3 shutout. Couldn't quite get that CG, just a couple pitches off of the Maddox. You were texting me. And I think that his time is finally here to start getting recognized for some big awards.
Yeah, Hunter Green's going to be my pitcher of the week as well, too. Like you said, 15 and 2/3 innings pitched, only one earned run allowed in that game against Texas, and 15 total Ks across 2 starts. Last night against the Giants, he was dominant. 8 and 2/3 was super frustrating for him because he gave up a hit with 2 outs to Jung-Hoo Lee, and then he walked Matt Chapman on an extended at-bat that got to like 6 or 7 pitches. At that point, when you're only up 2 runs, you kind of got to take him out if you're Terry Francona as he gets across the century mark pitch-wise, and I don't blame him for that. If it's a 7-0 game, you probably leave him in there, try to get through it until he gives up some real damage. But the Reds needed a victory, and they got that last night. And they've been winning games, or have the best chance to win games when Hunter Green's on the mound this year. And it's good to see for another guy who was a really high prospect, got drafted super high, was originally like a 2-way prospect as well too. Obviously didn't work out, but we're seeing that arm on the mound completely just dominate hitters now. He's a guy who touches 100 more often than he doesn't, it feels like. And really seeing that turn into results now is really cool to see. What about Rookie of the Week?
I'm going to double down on the pitchers here and take the Texas Ranger Jack Leiter. He shut down the Reds, only giving up 1 base runner over 5 innings. Off to a great start. That's a team that needs him badly. Kumar Rocker's gotten touched up a little bit, but Jack Leiter's been great.
My Rookie of the Week is going to be Jacob Wilson. A's rookie shortstop, who I talked about already a little bit. The last 5 games of this past week, 9 for 21, 2 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs, OPS over 1,000, a hit in every single game this year. Good defense as well too. This is exactly who we thought he could be, and we're seeing that right now. Only 2 strikeouts on the season. Both of them came in the same game against Colorado on Sunday. So the bat-to-ball skills are off the charts with Jacob Wilson. We're seeing, again, why he was a top prospect, I guess technically this year.
Up to a pretty nice hit streak, too, with the likes of Billy Butler and Jermaine Dye, if you saw that list.
Yeah, it was a fun list. Ryan Sweeney was on that list as well, too. But moving into buying or selling, something that we like to do every single year as the season starts is to either look ridiculously stupid or ridiculously smart or just somewhere in the middle. We understand that this is, ridiculously small sample size as well too. So don't freak out on us if we're saying, the barrel rate is something, really good or really bad, and it could just change starting tomorrow or even today. But based off of what we know and what we've seen so far, we're buying or selling stock on 14 different things. We're doing 5 teams to start off, starting with the San Francisco Giants, an 8-2 start. Skyler, are you buying the Gigantes and their new City Connect jerseys that came out today?
City Connects, I thought they'd be much worse based off of the comments, and they were all right. But onto the team, I'm definitely going to be selling my Giants stocks here. Fantastic start. Thanks to the rotation, some timely hitting, but for all the reasons we had a couple of weeks ago, I just can't bet on these guys to stay healthy. Verlander, Robbie Ray, Flores, and Yastrzemski all have a reputation already of missing some games here. And I think when that starts with the pitching staff, they're going to be in some serious trouble. The bullpen is not great this year, other than a guy like Ryan Walker. And even Rogers, I don't think has given up a run yet, but that's not going to be forever.
Yeah. I'll start with diagnosing an 8-2 start. It was 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati, a 3-game sweep in Houston, a 3-game sweep at home versus the Seattle Mariners, and then dropping that first game against Cincinnati last night. Their pitching has been by far the best spot of their team. 3rd in team ERA through 10 games or however we are at this point. Logan Webb, Robbie Way, and Jordan Hicks have all been really good. And the bullpen, especially the back end, has been solid. Tyler Rogers hasn't given up a run. Ryan Walker's given up one run in 5 innings. Randy Rodriguez and Eric Miller have been some sleeper guys as well too. Camilo Doval maybe not off to the greatest start, but they've been able to manage that so far. And the lineup on the other side is having some really good at-bats. Chappie, Jung-Hoo Lee, Yaz, Elliot Ramos, Wilmer Flores, Luis Matos, all off to really good starts. And I think the biggest thing with them that we're seeing, maybe not straight into baseball stats, is the culture change we're seeing with Wilyer Abreu being an addition to the squad. Anybody who's watched Giants baseball over the last 2 or 3 years knew just kind of how boring and personality-less that team was. Adding Wilyer Abreu in there, who's a guy who's always going to be on the top step of the dugout, always going to be, having a smile on his face, whatever it is, really contributes to that expected vibes stat that we like to talk about every now and then. So I'm going to have a slight buy in the Giants. I don't think that they're going to win the division and be better than the Dodgers or anything like that, but they should be close to a wild card team. And I could see, 85 to 87 wins in that squad, barring, some significant injury or something like that. But this team is a lot more fun than what they were in previous years. And I think that does end up mattering in the long run when you have to play 162 games like all these teams do. Moving on to the Seattle Mariners and their 4-7 start. So the stock is low right now. Are you buying this?
I wouldn't buy any more stock if I had any. I basically sold all my Seattle stock at the beginning of the year when I took a massive under on their win-loss. And now one of the only guys they have who can get on base, Victor Robles, is out for 2 months. And I think a big early tell for me is how they've looked against the Bay Area teams. A 2-6 record against those teams that they usually beat up on pretty well. I just don't see it when it comes to the lineup.
Yeah, the Seattle Mariners team is interesting. What we expected with them to have, really good starting rotation, solid bullpen, and lineup to be about mid. And that's what it's been for the lineup. I'd say 20th in team OPS is what they're at right now going into today, that is. But the ERA is 16th. So that's the bottom half in the league, even though, it's the very edge of the bottom half. But still, 16th is not as good as what we expected them to be. The bats specifically, I don't think have been that bad. J-Rod and Cal Raleigh have been who they are. Maybe not as good as what we quite expect. But Dylan Moore and Jorge Polanco have stepped up. But the guys that they do need a bit more production from, Luke Raley, Randy Rosarena, J.P. Crawford, and Mitch Garver are all struggling pretty bad. And that's a big problem, especially when your rotation is not quite as good as what we thought. Gilbert, Castillo, and Wu have all been solid. But Bryce Miller's had some early struggles. And without George Kirby, there is no good feel in that 5 spot. For Kirby, though, specifically, I guess he threw a bullpen in Arizona recently, and he feels great. Okay. But still has to do a full spring progression, which is obviously going to take another month or two. So maybe expect him back in mid to late May, early June. And that's probably the toughest part about it. But with the stock being so low, I will buy some stock. Okay. Even though I've bought some Mariners stock the past 2 years, and it hasn't really worked out for me too much. I think the rotation, especially the top 4, should really get back to that ace level as we go on throughout the season. And the lineup doesn't need to be that great. They just need to be average, and that's where they're at right now. So if we see any variation of that, I think they can be a bit better as well too. So I'll buy, just not too much so. Mainly just kind of sitting and watching right now. Next up, same division. We're talking about the Angels. They are off to a surprising 6-3 starts. What do you think about the Halos?
Yeah, I'm selling the Angels here. I think it's the same problem as San Francisco. I think the pitching staff is way overperforming right now. Kenley Jansen and Jose Soriano are probably going to have good seasons. I think the rest are probably going to struggle when it gets warmer outside, and I think the lineup is going to come back to reality. They had some big games against the White Sox and the Cardinals. Just wait until they get into the bigger teams of the American League. They're going to give up a lot of runs.
Yeah, 6-3 start's been surprising. The ERA still isn't good, though. They're 22nd in team ERA. Pretty much for their pitching staff, the rotation and bullpen just haven't been good outside of their 8th and 9th inning guys in Ben Joyce and Kenley Jansen, and they haven't allowed a run yet in 8 innings total pitched. So they're practically playing a 7-inning game where they just need to score more runs in 9 innings than what you allow in 7 innings, which makes your chances to win a lot better, of course. But if you were to tell me this team got off to a 6-3 start and Mike Trout, Luis Renifo, Yohan Moncada, and Jorge Soler are all around league average hitting wise, I'd say what gives? How is this team, winning games? The 2 guys that have been on a tear for them are Kyron Paris and Logan O'Hoppe. Kyron Paris right now, 0.7 WAR in 8 games. He just hit his 3rd homer of the year. This is a guy I played against in high school. I did not think he would be the way that he was, but he was the fastest guy I have ever seen play on a high school baseball field. And the big problem with him has always been, hitting the ball hard and then being able to, stretch that gap power and get it over the fence. or something like that. And he's been able to do that this year. He's been having great bat-to-ball skills. His 15.4% barrel rate is 81st percentile. You combine that with his sprint speed, he's a guy who's going to, cause havoc on the base pass and just be able to beat out ground balls, be able to turn doubles into triples. And that combined with Logan O'Hoppe, who's been ridiculous to start the year, who I talked about as my player of the week, kind of gives some oh shit, maybe the Angels got something to them. But I'm going to slightly sell this stock. I think they're better than I originally expected, but I do not expect them to come close to being a playoff team. So maybe not under that, 71.5 wins that I think I had, but maybe 75 to be a bit more accurate for them. What about the Atlanta Braves, who are off to a ridiculously bad start, sitting at 1-8 with the offense? I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, the 1-8 start has been very hard to watch, but I still don't think they're going to finish last over there. So I'm going to slightly buy Atlanta because Acuna, Strider, and Lopez have not played yet this year. Murphy is about to play his first game of the year. Profar will be back. I did take the under because I was worried about this. I didn't think it'd be this bad, but when some guys get back in that lineup, it's going to eventually all click because there's great potential in that rotation. I think they make a late push. So I'll buy them now. This is probably the lowest point they'll ever be at.
Yeah. Outside of Olsen and Ozuna, the lineup has been ridiculously terrible. This is a team that ranks 30th, dead last in team OPS at 577 right now. Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, all not pulling their weight, combined with no Acuna, Murphy, or Profar, makes the lineup a whole lot thinner than what we used to see it as in the past couple of years, even with their struggle at times last year. On the pitching side, Schwellenbach looks like an ace, but outside of that, their starting pitchers have not been good. Ronaldo Lopez and Chris Sale have struggled. AJ Smith-Sharper and Grant Holmes have not stepped up. With the bad bullpen as well, too, you really get into a tough spot. And while I think this Braves team bounces back once they get Strider and Acuna and Murphy back, they might be too far back at that point to really, get back into it with how competitive the NL East is going to be this year. So I'm going to say sell. Not ruling out a playoff run or anything like that. Again, we're 9 games into a 162-game season, but the Braves do not look good. And in a division like the NL East, you can be out of it quicker than you expect. So I will sell their stock.
Yeah, I'm still okay with the Smith-Schaber stock. His changeup is ridiculous, but Schwellenbach was the real breakout on this team.
Yeah, Schwellenbach's been dealing. He 2 hits or something over 8 innings on Friday against the Marlins. I think that was their only win of the season so far. They lost the next 2 games to the Marlins, so that tells you how bad it's been for the Braves. But the last team that we have is the Chicago Cubs, an 8-5 start, the team that we've seen the most of so far this season. They've played a league high 13 games. What do you think about the Cubbies in 2025?
I think I've seen enough. I'm going to take a massive buy on the Cubs. After coming home from Japan, the Cubbies have put up a massive amount of runs. This is their best looking lineup since 2016, a very hitter-friendly park. Now, these days, maybe not at the time it was built, but nowadays Wrigley Field definitely is. And when this happens, the pitching doesn't need to be perfect. Hence us taking Justin Steele off of the list. We were going to talk about him potentially being a bust this year. He's figured it out. They only need him to have his average start, and that goes with the rest of the rotation, too. I'm excited about the Cubbies. I think they're going to score a lot of runs, maybe be like an Arizona of last season, and in their division, that's going to be good enough to win it.
Yeah, the offense is the real big kicker for this team right now. 7th in team OPS, being led by a ridiculous start for Kyle Tucker, who has a 1.2 WAR in 13 games with a 219 WRC plus. Guys like Nico Horner, Seiya Suzuki, Michael Busch, James B. Swanson, Carson Kelly, all off to great starts as well, too. I think outside of Kelly, the guys I just named are guys that you'd expect to hit well, too. So it's not like they're getting anything too surprising from the hitting side. On the pitching side, Shota Imanaga has been dominating and pitching like an ace right now. Justin Steele, maybe not in his first few starts, but the start last night against the Rangers, he absolutely dealt. And when they have the back end of the bullpen that they do, and Ryan Presley, Porter Hodge, Julian Merriweather, this Cubs team can really perform. So I'm going to buy the stock. I think they're legit, and I think they have a really good chance to win the NL Central this year. Into the players now. I believe we got 9 of these guys, starting off with a guy, Stanford product, Tommy Edman, who's been off to a ridiculous start in 2025.
I've thought a lot about selling on Tommy Edman, but he has elite defense whenever he plays center field, and I wouldn't count on Andy Pahis, James Outman, even Esty to come for that spot anytime soon. So if Edman's bat holds up, there's no reason for him to move. He's on pace for 20 homers in a lineup with tons of protection. I actually like this fit a lot, even though it was a little cause for concern to start the year.
Yeah, one thing that we've known about Tommy Edman, even with some struggling seasons in 2023 and 2024, we knew that he was a stud. This is a guy that's going to, have the non-variable plays on your defense and on the base pass. It's always just going to be the hitting. And I think we both kind of felt maybe 23 and 24 were not indicative of who he is as a player, which makes you look into what did he change to perform better. So far, less swing and miss. His 18% whip is the lowest since 2022 when he had his best season. He's hitting the ball harder. His 81st percentile average exit velocity is by far his best season, and he's pulling fly balls, which is indicative of your home run rate. 26.2% fly ball rate is by far his most in his career. He still has had some chase problems, and he's not walking much, so maybe not a 130 WRC plus hitter, and maybe that goes down to 115. But he has improved his approach. He's got great speed and amazing defense, and I think he can definitely be, a 5+ WAR player. So I will buy Tommy Edman stock right now, especially with the Dodgers, where he's not going to be the center of attention. This is like the, 8th best player on this roster.
Yeah.
Maybe even, that's got a range to it. It could be like 5 to 12 maybe, but still, there's not a lot of pressure on him, and he's going to perform. So I'm buying on Tommy Edman. This guy's a stud. Next up, fun one for us, Tyler Soderstrom, who's off to a ridiculous start for the A's.
Yeah, I'm never selling my Sody stock ever, and I'm sure you feel a similar way. We'll wait for that conversation, because not every high school bat is Mike Trout. Most of them take a lot longer, even than it took Soderstrom to finally figure this out. So I would have kept waiting even longer. I wouldn't sell his stock. He finally figured out how to stop chasing, when to go after that moonshot, when he's done it 6 times already this year. Little comparison last night from Dallas Braden to the bringer of rain, Josh Donaldson. If he can figure out when it is time to bust it out, he's going to be the perfect middle of the order lineup for us. I love Soder.
Yeah. And if he could play third or something like that, that'd be pretty cool. But we'll worry about that to another day. I'm buying some Soderstrom stock as well too. Last year, even though he wasn't a qualified hitter, he posted some encouraging power numbers as far as barrel rate, hard hit rate, expected slug, bat speed, stuff like that. This year, those numbers are staying in a good spot while reducing his whiff and chase percent, and that's is because of a change in approach, what we're seeing. His swing percent has gone down from 48.7 to 42.1, and the biggest thing is we're seeing him be more selective on the first pitch. His swing rate on first pitches in 2024 was 40.8%, which is a pretty high number. This year, it's down to 23.9%, so he's not chasing early, getting ahead in counts. He's understanding what pitchers are trying to do to him, and he's mashing the baseball when he gets it. So Tyler Soderstrom, I'm buying that stock. I think he's going to be a stud for us this year, and hopefully plays well in that ballpark that we have. I saw a post from MLB last night about Tyler Soderstrom being tied to Aaron Judge in the league for homers, and the top comment was from a Yankees fan that says Little League Ballpark. And I'm like, okay, that is the most ironic thing I've seen in my life. But regardless, Soderstrom's a stud. Now we're going to talk about somebody who might be affected by that Little League Ballpark. That's not the A's and the Yankees. Anthony Volpe off to another good start this season. What do you think about the Volpster?
Yeah, talk about Little League Ballpark here. And I'm buying Anthony Volpe stock because this guy's launch angle has gone from 8 degrees last year to 18 now. Talk about adapting to your ballpark for a guy who's going to play there probably for a long time. He now has an even better eye and approach. It's a similar story with Soderstrom here. He already had the great overall tools. This guy was a great defensive player, great speed. You had 25 plus homers. This is a surefire all-star player. So I like what they're doing in New York. You know, it may not turn into a World Series ring with this regime, but when you're talking solely Anthony Volpe stock here, I like his progression.
Yeah, I saw a nickname for Anthony Volpe be Volpedo.
Yeah.
I don't really like that.
Awfully close to something else.
Yeah, awfully close, but the torpedo bat is definitely working because he's barreling up the ball a lot more this year. He had a 3.9 barrel rate in 2024 and a 19.4 barrel rate so far in 2025, and he's also slightly chasing less. I just think that's too far of a jump for me to be like, yeah, it's going to stick. I understand. I think he improves, but I don't think he becomes this 900 OPS hitter that we've seen him be in the first couple of weeks of the season. I still think there is some holes within his approach, and so I'm going to sell his stock. He had this kind of start last year as well too, where he got off to a hot start and then slowed down in later months. I really like Anthony Volpe as a player, and I hope he does stick to this because I think that'd be a cool story. But I don't think he does. So I will sell his stock. Not a ton of it, just a bit, enough to where it ends up being, maybe a 770 OPS type player.
The pinstripe.
Even if he does that.
Stock.
Yeah, that's true. But if he's 770 OPS, plays the defense that he plays and steals the way that he does, he's a Tommy Edman type player in that regard. Next up, perhaps the MVP of the league so far, at least in the AL, Wilyer Abreu. Look up the Savant page on this, and you might get sunburned by how much red is on there.
Yeah. If at some point Boston needs to trade him to help somewhere else, I would be okay with selling the stock. If you think this is his peak, I don't blame you, but I don't think I can do that right now. Everybody is buying his stock because he was already one of the hardest swingers in baseball. And now, like you mentioned, that Savant page, you mix in the elite eye, you mix in an even harder hit rate, and you've got MLB's leader in OPS through the first few weeks. Again, it's easy to get lost in a hot start, like we talked about with Volpe, but so far there's no one better.
I'm a big-time buyer on Wilyer Abreu. This is a guy I liked a few years ago, didn't really understand some of the things I do now. Let me go through it. His expected slug is over 700 versus fastballs, breaking pitches, and off speed, which means everything that they throw. And he's not whiffing more than 17% of the time on any of them. So he's not – let me just go through this now. His zone swing and zone contact are up, so that means he's hitting the ball more. He's swinging at strikes more. His chase rate is down, while his chase contact rate is going up. So even when he chases, he still fights off those pitches that he's swinging at. His whiff rate is down, and his meatball swing, which is pitches right down the middle, swing percent is up. So really, he's just doing everything better that you can possibly do better as a hitter while hitting the ball harder. And so he's got this great swing decisions. He's hitting the ball hard. He's pulling fly balls, and he's playing great defense that we've already seen in years prior. Like, we might be looking at a guy who's legitimately an MVP type player and only 25 years old. I said on here I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think I am because this guy's a stud. He's fun to watch play the game as well too. And in that, big right field in Fenway, he mans it about as well as you possibly can. So I think Wilyer Abreu is here to stick, and I think he, has that MVP type potential in him that maybe his teammate Christian Campbell has as well too. That we actually won't talk about today. That doesn't include Roman Anthony, doesn't include Marcelo Meyer, who we know are potentially even better prospects than Christian Campbell, and way better than what Wilyer Abreu was when he was coming up. Next up, on to the rough guys. We have to talk about a couple of these guys, that is. Starting with Dylan Cruz, off to a really, really rough start in the Nationals this year.
Yeah, giving up on a prospect that was taken that high is always difficult. And maybe he's just another really late bloomer. But I'm buying the stock that he's not going to be effective for this season. He's really quick, but he's got negative range in the outfield somehow. He doesn't get on base, so he can't steal bases, and he chases everything. It's nowhere near what Wyatt Langford has looked like. I can't even compare him to Harrison Bader anymore because he at least hits the ball hard. I think it's really bad news for Cruz. We're looking at least another year of development before we're talking about him.
Yeah, the quick look looks really bad. He's watching more pitches in the zone and swinging at more pitches out of the zone than last year, which leads to a really rough K percent, leads to a really bad whiff rate, and leads to him not walking at all. So you're just behind, the 8 ball. I love using that term a lot, but it's really true with him. He's struggling big time to hit fastballs, which is a baseline for MLB hitters. If you can't hit the fastball, then you don't belong. What my hope is that this is just a really big slump, and he breaks out of it soon, and we go back to being, Dylan Cruz is going to be this ridiculous player. But I think what's a realistic thing for him is that, if he struggles another 10, 15 games, maybe the Nationals send him down for a little bit and, build up his confidence and his eye back up to build better swing decisions against worse talent. And then once he gets comfortable there, it ends up being fine. So with that being said, I'm going to slightly buy because I think the stock is so down right now. And I have faith in the prospect that he was and that player that we expected him to be is still in there. Because when we watched Dylan Cruz at LSU, we watched Dylan Cruz in his first year in the minors. Like, this kid was ridiculous. I think that player still has the ability to be shown on the MLB level. And I hope it does.
So, yeah, I guess I'm holding then. I'm not because I'm not buying right now.
Yeah. Another top prospect that's off to a rough start is Michael Toglia, first baseman for the Rockies. What do you think about him and his start so far this year?
I'm going to have to finally give up on Michael Toglia for this season. A guy I really liked watching, kind of like Dylan Cruz, not on the same stage, of course, but a guy we've been checking out the numbers for a while. And he's 26 now. That's how long it's been. He doesn't yet have a major league approach. He hits the ball really hard, but he's striking out like he's Adam Dunn, and he's not putting up Adam Dunn numbers. I think this is a guy they're going to have to move on from. And if you're not hitting well in Colorado, that's bad news.
Yeah, the swing and miss has been a big-time thing for him. It was a problem to be expected, though, because he has big-time power, but that hard contact is just not there this year. His barrel rate was 17.3% in 2024, which was the 98th percentile. This year it's 5.6%, which is 36th percentile. His 45% whiff rate and 44.7% K rate are ridiculously bad numbers. His chase is way up and his zone swing is way down, which is similar to Dylan Cruz. He's looking at more strikes and swinging at more balls. His lack of fly balls is another big problem as well, too. 9.4 average launch angle in 2025 compared to a 15.1% launch angle in 2024. He's not pulling the ball in the air either, which has a correlation to how many homers you can hit. And for a guy like Michael Toglia, you kind of need to hit homers to be effective. His 21.2% pull fly ball rate in 2024 put him in the red for that. This year, it's at 11.1%, and that puts him in the blue, which is bad. And he's struggling to hit pitches that he mashed last year. In 2024, 6 run value versus 4-seam fastballs, 8 run value versus sinkers, and only 20% whiff against fastballs in general, which means 4-seam, 2-seam sinkers, and cutters, which led to a 590 expected slug versus the pitch, which is super high. This year, that whip has jumped from 20% to 35.9%. So he's not hitting the fastball, which we knew was a problem for Dylan Cruz. And at this point, I think I'm selling Michael Toglia, which sucks because I have a bet on him this year to hit at least 22 homers. He does not have one yet. And I think we could see him, end up going down to the minors at some point, which is really unfortunate as well, too. Still has big time pop, though, if that ever, got in there. We know it's there is the thing. Now on to 3 pitchers, which is always more fun for me to do than hitters. Started off with Kris Bubic, another Stanford player who's off to a great start in 2025.
Yeah, I got it in my notes here. Another Stanford prod that I will be buying in on, Kris Bubic, and it's because we know he's had all this stuff for about 3 years now. Really good sweeper and changeup, but now he's doing it over 6-inning outings. So far, so good. Even though he only throws about 92 on the fastball, it was never a question about the ability and the stuff with him. It's kind of the baseball IQ and how long can his arm actually go. And so far, he's been completely fine facing guys multiple times in the same night. So I'm good buying the stock.
Yeah. biggest thing I asked once I looked at this is what changed, because he was trash in previous years. Came back last year as a reliever after, I want to say, Tommy John, and was effective out of the pen. This year they move him back into the rotation. So why is he good this year? Why was he good last year? First off, he got rid of his curveball that he used as his third offering for pretty much the entirety of his first 3 years in the big leagues. He changed his fastball shape after getting hurt in 2023. In 2023, the fastball had a 15.6 induced vertical break, that's inches, and 6 inches horizontal break. This year, it's jumped up 3 inches for vertical break, so it's staying on its plane a lot more and having some more ride to it. He added a sweeper in 2024, threw it 36% of the time. He keeps the sweeper this year and splits the usage into half to 18%. And that pitch has been really good, a 171 expected batting average on that so far. He re-adds a slider that he used briefly in 2023, but changes it into a bullet slider, which is like similar to the football spin, where it just doesn't really move much, but it stays into a weird spot where hitters don't really know what it's going to do. He briefly used that in 2023, but he changes that into that bullet slider rotation and throws it nearly 2 miles per hour harder than what an average left-handed slider is. So as this pitch 16% of the time in 2 starts, and the results have been solid. Add that in with the really solid changeup that he's used for the entirety of his career and has kind of been his calling card. You get a guy who misses bats and barrels, which keeps his ERA down. So I'm big buying on Kris Bubic. He's been great so far. Maybe not, the hardest thrower like you talked about, but with how he's performing and how his secondaries are, he's been really damn good for the Royals. So I'm buying his stock. Next up, former number 1 overall pick in 2018, Casey Mize, off to a really good start after coming back from injury last year and just not performing too well.
I do like Casey Mize still. Throws a bunch of fastballs like he always has, which is okay at Comerica Park. But I think his best pitch is still the split. We'll see. He hasn't thrown it as often this year. Maybe it's a control thing. But I feel like he's always had it in him. Casey Mize just needed a full season in the rotation. He just shut down the Yankees. So this goes beyond the numbers. It could be another guy with a mental block. And through a couple weeks in, I'm okay buying the stock. He was drafted where he was for a reason. And this kind of pitcher is the hot new thing these days. He throws a bunch of fastballs, and the splitter just dies in the zone.
Yeah, Casey Mize is fun this year. I again asked the question, what changed? Well, why is he trash last year? Why is he good this year? It starts off with the slurve. I think he threw it like 1% of the time in 2024, so just mixed it in every now and then. He throws it 26% of the time this year, and maybe with hitters not being as ready for it, that can change, or not seeing the scattering report as much. That can kind of, lead to some good performances. But that pitch so far, 111 expected batting average, 206 expected slug. So that's been a good pitch. His splitter has been ridiculous, and he's also changed the way that he threw it from last year. He's added nearly 2 miles per hour on it, and it has a 15.9 induced horizontal break, which means it's moving practically 16 inches than what you expect it to. He just this pitch is also unhittable as well too. I think is pretty freaking crazy. It has a 73% whiff so far in 2025, wow, which is a ridiculous number. Expected batting average is .025. Expected slug .027. I think also his fastball has added another extra 1.5 inches of induced vertical break. So he's got 3 really good offerings with that slurve, splitter, and his fastball. He's still throwing his slider a little bit at 11% of the time. I expect as we move more into the season and the Tigers realize some of the results he's getting on his splitter, they completely move out of that slider and move that percentage right into his splitter, because it's been ridiculously hard to hit for hitters so far this year. And when you have 3 really good offerings like Casey Mize does, it's tough to hit him. So I'll buy on that stock. He went 1-1 for a reason in 2018, and we were seeing an excellent 2-starter to back up last year's AL Cy Young and Tariq Skubal. Last guy that we got, we're saving the most polarizing for the last. It's Roki Sasaki, top prospect, number 1 prospect going into this year, has not performed well in his first few starts of 2025. What is it with Roki, and what are you doing?
We've all been spoiled by Paul Skeens because most pitching prospects in their early 20s have a lot of control issues. It's just what happens, and that's what's been happening with Roki. He did look great in Philly, though. He just doesn't need to go more than 4 innings with this team. I think we went back and forth on it a couple times before the season started, and now we're seeing it too. The bullpen gets a lot of action with the Dodgers. I think you'd be crazy to sell any Roki Sasaki stock. I think we've seen enough. It's kind of precautionary, and it's kind of, hey, we're trying to win a championship, and you're going to be capped at 4 innings for now, whether you're on the mark with your fastball or not. We've seen a game where he walks 5 guys, and this week he looked pretty good. So I'm going to keep riding with the Roki stock, I guess.
Yeah, it's been rough in the first few starts. So what's going wrong with him? His 43.8% zone rate is ridiculously bad. According to Location Plus, where 100 is average, all of his pitches are way below that. His fastball's at 77, his splitter's at 55, and his slider's at 57. All this leads to a 25.6% walk rate is in the first percentile, which is really, really bad. Also, the fastball shape is not as good as we expected. While still 2.5 miles per hour harder than the average right-handed fastball at 97 miles per hour this year, is 14.1% inches of induced vertical break and 11.4 inches of induced horizontal break at 42-degree arm angle are not exciting statistics. Usually a guy who has a 42-degree arm angle is seeing more like 16 to 17 inches of horizontal break in order for that pitch to be league average. Right now, aside from velocity, that pitch is not that good. So what does that mean results-wise? He's not getting any whiffs on it at 14.3%, and it's getting hit hard at 39.9% of the time for that hard hit rate. So to sum it up, he's unable to locate anything other than his fastball, which he still doesn't do well, and that allows hitters to hunt that pitch. So how do you fix this? One thing is Tommy John. I think it's a reasonable thing for him now at this point. His velocity is down quite a bit from when he was in the MPB, and that can mean there's just a straight-up arm issue there. And maybe they just need to go through, put him under the knife, and get this done because they know it'll probably be something that they have to deal with at some point. And now is a time where they can deal with his loss maybe better than what they can in 4 or 5 years from now. Second option is you got to vary your fastballs better. When you don't have a very good four-seamer, it's tough to get hitters out with it, and it's tough to get ahead with it. So maybe add a sinker and a cutter to get hitters off that offering. We're seeing more people do that nowadays as well too. So that can be effective, but again, that's kind of tough to do in season to develop, big league ready pitches that you're not used to. So maybe that's something that they do in in future years. And the last thing is kind of the obvious one. He has to command his secondaries better. His splitter and slider, he just cannot throw for strikes, even though both these pitches are ridiculously disgusting. Going back to Fangraphs where I got the Location Plus, going to Stuff Plus, which is kind of how nasty are these pitches, where 100 is average as well too. His splitter's at 126, which is a super high offering, and his slider's above league average as well too at 108 right now. The batting average against those pitches are 0, 0, 0. He hasn't allowed a hit against those pitches yet. The splitter's got a 50% whiff. The slider's got a 57.1% whiff. However, you'd expect a low like WOBA or stuff like that to go with that. And that's not true right now because of how much he can't locate it. The WOBA against his splitters at 251 and WOBA against the sliders at 173, which means literally no hits have been allowed, and yet you're still getting like close to like league average numbers for that statistic, which doesn't make any sense unless you cannot throw it for a strike at all, which he cannot. Again, I don't know how to tell someone, hey, throw your splitter for strikes more when you can't control it because that's not just how things work. But my whole thing with this is I'm selling his stock for 2025 specifically.
Okay.
I think he ends up being a stud in 2026, 2027. Once the Dodgers kind of figure out how to, utilize him and use his stuff a bit better. But as of right now, I just don't know. Like, you can't compete in the big leagues with how little amount of strikes that he's throwing. Like, it's just impossible. I don't think they sent him down. I think before they sent him down, they just shut him down and give him surgery or something like that, or do whatever they got to do. But it's kind of tough for Roki. It's again, like you said, I like you mentioned Paul Skeens because we were spoiled with him last year because he just came up and instantly became the best pitcher in the big leagues. Not tonight though. 4 runs and 5+ so far against the Cardinals, but Roki will take time. I don't like the hate that he's getting either. I saw Eric Hosmer and Jonathan Lucroy making fun of him or something like that, which is just kind of stupid. Like, I don't know. I don't think other big leaguers should be making fun of a 23-year-old rookie who's playing in the States for the first time in his career. But Roki will be fine, just not this year. So I sell this stock.
You can't help but, before we move on, you can't help but think about guys like Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson. They couldn't throw a strike until they were 30. And now we have all of this information. That's kind of the reason why I am okay with Roki Sasaki, even if he does get shut down, like you said, this year, because they're going to figure out what he needs to do.
Yeah, there's a long-term investment in him for the Dodgers, and they are completely okay with it being a long-term thing because they don't need the short-term. Because they already have 5 or 6 other guys they can throw out there. They already have, options in the bullpen that they could do. If they want to make him a closer, I don't think that'd be smart. Maybe if he was on the Angels, they would do that. But I also trust the Dodgers to understand what's going on with him and be able to fix him in the way that he becomes the guy that we expected him to be. Yeah. Even though they actually don't have the greatest track record with prospects over the past few years. Anyways. That does it for our buying or selling. I know that was a monologue. I told Skyler to be prepared for that.
That was awesome.
Doing a lot of research on him last night specifically because I know Roki's just the big topic of baseball right now. But some interesting stuff happened in the basketball world outside of college basketball, March Madness. Tell me about these coaches being fired, man. What's up with that?
Yeah, specifically in the Western Conference for the NBA right now, there's about 7 teams, only a couple of games apart from each other. And 2 of those specifically have hit a really terrible skid here. We'll start off with Memphis. They have lost at least 5 in a row. They decided to fire Taylor Jenkins. That one was a little bit shocking, but we know that there's not good vibes in the building over there. Even their best player this season, at least the one who's played the most games, Jaren Jackson Jr., has been getting into these horrible situations where he's got 4 or 5 fouls early. The biggest shocker to me, and probably everyone, was Mike Malone of Denver. They lose 4 games in a row. He's allegedly getting into fights with the GM. They both get canned this morning. They're out of there. They're the 4 seed in the West. And just massive news if you're a Warriors fan or a Clippers fan or anyone else in the Western Conference. Denver could be in some trouble here.
I was trying to figure out like a comparison, maybe not into the MLB because I feel like it's a pretty unique scenario when it comes to like getting rid of coaches. But in the NFL, I was going to say like, I don't know about Mike Tomlin because I think Tomlin just has a bit more tenure than that. But what would you consider like a decent comparison for firing Mike Malone?
Yeah, that's a good one. The
Don McVay, Sirianni.
He could be. I'm thinking. I'm thinking a more quiet guy than that. Because from Kevin, who works at the Warriors, Denver was just in the building, and he said that Mike Malone didn't say one word. He just looked angry and sat by himself the whole time. It's definitely a little Mike Tomlin. He probably doesn't have the same kind of respect, though, but they do both have championships. I don't think that's a horrible one.
Harbaugh and the Ravens.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like decent results. But I don't know. Like it's rare to see a coach who has gotten a ring so recently get canned like that. We saw it with the Bucks a couple of years ago. I guess Ime Udoka's spot with the Celtics was interesting because there's some other extracurricular stuff going on there. But it's just weird how basketball handles their stuff because seemingly these good scenarios are just being thrown out of the window.
Well, I definitely feel bad for those 2 teams in such a tight race. You don't need any disadvantage possible here, but Memphis has won 2 in a row. John Morant hit a game winner last week. Maybe they're finally getting back on the right track here. One last basketball thing before we move on. We're big Warriors fans. Right now, they're sitting at the 6th spot in the West, the last spot not in the play-in. They are tied with the Clippers, Minnesota, and Memphis with the same record, only half a game out of Denver and multiple games, 2 games out of the Lakers, who they just beat. The biggest game of the season, of course, will come on the last day, Sunday. They're closing out the year at home against the Clippers, who they cannot seem to beat because this year, kind of shocking, right? If you told me there were going to be 4 massive, disastrous blow-ups in the NBA, you would think the Clippers were probably part of that. And they have not. Kawhi's been very good. They've been crushing the Warriors. That game could determine who gets the 4 and who has to play in the play-in. So I'm really excited to watch that game.
Yeah, just such a crazy Wild West in the NBA right now. Usually, or I wouldn't say usually, but this year at times has been kind of monotonous in the NBA season, it feels like. But this last month or two, it feels like I'm checking the standings every day to see if the Warriors are playing, to see what these other teams are doing, to hate on the Lakers like they always doing. But
you could thank the Luka trade for this.
Yeah, I guess good job NBA if you want to say that. But I'm definitely tuned in to the race right now. I'm curious to see how that transforms in the playoffs. So if I will be tuning in as much or have as much desire to tune in to those. Definitely the Warrior games.
Yeah. Projected to go to Crypto Arena for the first round. That would be very exciting.
It's kind of close, too.
Yeah.
Very expensive, though. So, yeah, good luck.
Very close to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, moving on to Layups bold predictions. Last week was a good week for us. 3 out of 4. I had the Dodgers over Atlanta on Wednesday. Skyler had Atlanta over Miami on Friday. That's the only game they've won so far. So 2 greens for us. This week, I'm taking a game tomorrow where the starters are Max Meyer and Tyler McGill. In between the Mets and the Miami Marlins. They have not released an over-under yet for this game. I expect it to be 8.5. And I'm going to take the under on that. Both of these starting pitchers off to good starts. Miami's lineup is not that good in general. So even if the Mets score, 5-6 runs, I think it might be tough for Miami to fill up the other half of that. So I'll take the under 8.5, expecting that's what it is once the line comes out.
My layup, I'm going with another baseball divisional rival here, Houston and Seattle on Wednesday. It's a matchup of number 2s, Hunter Brown, Luis Castillo. Hunter Brown's been really good this year. I'm going to take him to win this game. I think the Seattle lineup's going to be a little shaken up for some time before realizing that their leadoff hitter, one of their most counted on guys, will be out of the lineup for 2 months.
Moving to our bold predictions, I had Bryce Harper homer on Thursday last week. I believe he had an extra base hit in that game, but did not get one over the fence. Skyler had Milwaukee over Kansas City on Wednesday. That did happen. Milwaukee got a big win in that one. This week, I'm going Devers home run on Wednesday. This is against Kevin Gausman, so tomorrow, actually. Devers has been raking this past week after a really slow start in the first week. If we did our buy or sell, in our previous episode, we probably would have had Devers on that list, but he's been good, which is, kind of what we expected to end up seeing from him. And I think he gets one over the wall against Gausman tomorrow in Boston.
For my bold prediction, I'm going with a Friday night game in the desert. That's the 2 Rodriguez's, Elvin of Milwaukee, Eduardo of Arizona. You know what? I'm going to take back-to-back Milwaukee here. Not that I think they're going to make a certain push that Arizona isn't, but early in the season, Eduardo Rodriguez, he has one really bad blow-up start, one very good. I think he had about 10 Ks in one of his starts already. I'm going to say it falls on the odd number for Eduardo. Elvin gets the big win. They really need him in Milwaukee. Lots of issues with the pitching staff. They just had to trade a top prospect for Quinn Priester the other day. So they really need Elvin to get a win here on Friday night.
Yeah, lock in, Elvin. That's going to do it, though, for episode 239. Next week in episode 240, maybe we get back to power rankings. Draft stuff, I believe we'll still have another week on. But maybe we do some, preliminary discussions in that topic. But yeah, any closing remarks, guys?
Yeah, I would say that the next big thing coming up outside of NBA postseason would be the NFL draft. And for teams that are picking sixth and seventh in a draft where we don't know what in the world's going on, it's getting a little bit anxious for me, at least.
Yeah. What I like, though, is that regardless of how the draft goes, there's going to be guys available at 6 that I want, which is cool. And I think Genty, who I really, really want, probably has the lowest chance of going in the top 5 and being available at 6. So hopefully the Raiders go that way. But we obviously still got some time to get to there.
I did see one on NFL Network. The guy who was doing it traded up to 2 with the Raiders to take Travis. Like it's not killing 2 birds with 1 stone. They got a corner and a receiver.
Yeah, but then we also have to give up our first round pick next year or something, I guess. But
probably
that's it. I don't know. That's an interesting, interesting way to go.
All right, that's all I got. Draft's coming soon. Probably have some sort of rankings or mock draft at some point as we get more and more smoke screen.
No, smoke season.
Yes, sir. All right. We'll see you next week, Kyle. Next Tuesday for 240.
Later.